So when I have the time, I tend to do a birthday cake for myself. This year, I wanted to try the wafer paper trend that I have been seeing online and a Danish cake. So let's make it. So I like collecting old pastry books. This is Just Desserts by Michael Smith. And the cake I'm making today is inspired by his recipe. I used his recipe, altered a few methods in there, and then baked it. So, since the recipe is in ounces, I did my calculations and changed it to grams. Yeah, let's make it. So, we will start by putting our eggs in a bowl, and we're going to whisk these eggs with some caster sugar until they have tripled in size. Then, after that, we are going to fold in our flour. This sponge only has eggs, self raising flour, and sugar. So, since I didn't have self raising flour, one of the alterations I did is that for a cup of all purpose flour, I added a teaspoon of baking powder to it. You could do this part using your hand mixer. I just feel like whipping it with a stand mixer gives a better volume, but you could still achieve this with your hand mixer. It's going to take a bit of time, but you should be able to do it. Do not try this by hand, it will take you forever. After about 8 to 10 minutes, and I feel like I would have easily gone longer. That is the volume that I have with our eggs. I know I bake and I have fun doing it, but making this cake wasn't very easy. Let me say that. Um, the instructions were clear. I meant being able to execute someone else's recipe and pegging all of the birthday celebrations on a recipe that I had never tried out before. This is my first time trying it, and I was trying it on camera. So you can imagine how much I was freaking out, considering this was going to be cut and all. So I was out here praying that it was going to work out. So I added some vanilla and then I continue whisking it, the flour. I did the flour in two additions just so that I don't deflate a lot of the egg volume that we have added, because you need that to give your cake structure. After this, you want to do this very slowly, by the way. After this, I'm going to pour the mixture or our batter into cake tins. I didn't have a baking paper, so there's normally a hack I normally use when I'm doing sponges at times, where I will grease the bottom and flour the bottom and not the sides, because for sponge cakes you want them to hold onto the sides of your cake tin. So if you grease the sides, they are going to keep falling and the structure is going to be damaged. So you actually want the sides as dry as possible. You don't need to grease them, it will support the structure of the sponge cake. So the original recipe actually does not make this batter into cakes. it makes it into thin, like thin biscuits that you bake. You spread them on a baking paper and bake those thin, I would say, biscuits of some sort, but I decided to do them as cake. As the cake is in the oven baking, I'm going to make the pastry cream. Now, I have a different method of making the pastry cream, but I was following the recipe. This part, I feel like I will change up when I'm doing this cake again, because I want to try it the exact same way again and see. Anyway, so we added our yolks and our sugar and some corn flour, and you just want to whisk this together until combined. Then we're going to add our milk, and then we will cook this on a very low heat until it thickens, and it is going to be ready. Once it's thickened a bit, we put it in a bowl, add our vanilla, and you want to let this cool completely before you can use it. The more it cools, the more it will thicken. So in the recipe, it said that we should sprinkle some custard sugar to prevent a film from forming. Yeah, that happens a lot with pastry cream. So I did that, and then I cling wrapped it and placed it in the fridge. My cakes are done baking. I cooled them upside down just cause. And then this is me removing the cakes from the cake tin. At this point, I was so excited that it actually worked. Like I said, the recipe doesn't make the batter into a full cake. It made them into like thin biscuits, I would say. Yeah, so for me to make it into a cake and for it to turn out great, I was just like really excited. And then I am going to now split these cakes into a couple more layers. I ended up with about 5 layers so that we have a nice layered cake. I then whipped my cream. The whipping cream that I'm using here is Bacon Top. It's a non-dairy whipping cream, but I'm sure if you want to use the dairy one, you could. And then the cake layers were calling for apricot jam. I didn't have apricot jam, and I was just like, I only need a small portion anyway, and that wasn't available in the size I needed. So that's my jam. We're going to use the mixed fruit jam. That's my cream, and those are my cake layers. Let's make this cake. I had wrapped the cake in cling film so that it doesn't dry out, because the sponge cakes have this tendency of drying out really fast. So I wanted them as moist as they can be as I was prepping the other ingredients. I'll start by putting some cream on the board. This is just to hold the first cake layer in place, and then I will be brushing some jam on the cake layer, and then we're going to add a bit of the pastry cream, having lightened it a bit with some whipping cream, and then we will alternate with the layers. I played around with it a bit just to make it my own, but basically it's just jam, pastry cream, and whipped cream, then the next cake layer comes in. So that's what you're going to see me do here. The places where I just played around with it, you're going to see. In the original cake, you actually cover this in the remaining pastry cream and then cover it in chocolate icing. I wanted to try out the wafer paper design, so I covered the entire cake in whipping cream, and then, as you will see later, sat down to do the tedious work of placing one wafer paper strip upon another one. So first we will crumb coat it in whipped cream. Just make sure everything, all the crumbs are locked in. Then we will do a final coat still in whipping cream. Then we will let it rest for a bit in the fridge before I start placing my wafer paper. I placed my topper and a mini crown on the cake off camera, and then I'm going to just try and figure out where I want my spheres. On the topper, the crown, and the spheres that I'm putting on right now are not edible, but they are food grade, so you can use them on cake. After this was the easiest part. Placing the wafer paper strips was time consuming, and you have to place them one by one. But the results, I really loved it. I really loved working with wafer paper strips. So I had cut the strips previously. You want to measure the width you want to work with, and then the height that you want to work with. And so basically for the remainder of this video, it's going to be me trying to measure the height that I want. I wanted a staggered look. I know a lot of the trends online and the strips are the same height. I wanted to play around with a staggered height for my cake. So that's what you're going to see me do for the remainder of the video. And that's how I made this cake. Would I do it again? Yes, because it was everything and more. The taste was amazing, as you're going to see at the end of the video, and the design was just elegant. I love this. I'm so glad that I pushed myself to try this design and this flavor, I would say. Hopefully I did the Danish people proud, but this was definitely amazing. I had to do a test taste later to show you how the inside looks like, because when we were cutting this cake, my family was there and I am intending to keep them as private as possible. So this is the next day. This is how a cake slice looks like. You can see the jam, the cream, all that. This cake was so good. Like, I feel like I don't know how best to explain it. It's just like a cloud. It just melts in your mouth. Would totally try this again. That was a setup. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.